Hey everybody, America. A horse with no name, baby. Walking around out there in the desert. Love this song. The reason I'm telling you, the reason I'm using this song to tell you this part of the story is because this is the desert part of the vacation. So we might as well have a desert song, don't you think? There you bet. We'll be right there.
The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one to give you no name.
Thanks, guys. We'll get them back, on the way up. So it's the desert part of the story, like I say. Now, the way we come to the desert part of the story is Ted and Annabee and I are all in the camper now. We picked Annabee up at the Some Like It Hot hotel, in Wharf. She was on the yacht. And so we crossed the border, no problemo. And we head down to Tijuana because that's the first tourist-based town. That's why it's there for us. And fortunately, since Ted had been on this vacation the year before, he not only knew where Tijuana was, he knew where the Mexican Safeway was. Oh, yeah. Never heard of the Mexican Safeway? You should expand your education. Go down there and check it out. It's much improved over the normal Safeway that we know of. So there we are. We're down in Tijuana, and we pulled into the Mexican Safeway parking lot. Everything's the same. I think that Safeway Corporation may have built the building. Or, been involved. It looked like Safeway, but it didn't say Safeway. And so while we're parking there, getting out of the van, stretching, and getting ready for the Olympics of alcohol buying, because that's what you do first. When you first get there, the reason that Tijuana town is there is so that all of us rich freaking Americans can go in there and supply up on all the alcohol and all the food and all the whatever it is that we want for however long we're going to be playing down there in Mexico. Well, great. It's a great plan because it works. And we had no shortage of storage because we had Ted's camper. We had more room than you could shake a stick at. And, excuse me. I used to be able to pause, see. Pause doesn't work anymore, so I'm afraid I'll have to, that's so nice. Thanks. So, we park, and the first thing that we notice when we're going into the Safeway, is there's a paramilitary truck that drives by. An 8-track, they call it. Not like the music, but the reason they call it an 8-track is because, well, some of them have wheels in back, and some of them have tank treads. So it's an 8-track. But it consists of the driver. Hello, how are you? And right next to him riding shotgun is the shotgun. Literally. And in back, there's 2 benches facing the middle, so that it fits 4 soldiers on each side that are, faced toward each other, and each one of them has a gun propped up and ready to go. Any trouble anywhere? Maybe lately. So we thought that was interesting. We weren't in any trouble. We hadn't had time to get in trouble. Besides, we were doing the most important part that Mexico wants from us gringos. We were spending the money. They don't want to arrest you right now. They'll arrest you later when, you spent all your money probably, or had it stolen, or, whatever. That's not the story. Excuse me. So, what I'm going to do now is just break away for a minute and tell you the story about how gringos and, what do they call them? How you deal with the locals who want to do something for you. We are in the parking lot, like I say, and we are, we're getting out and we've stretched, we've seen the half track. And right behind the half track, on the other side of the street over there are bars. Oh, well, that's something to keep in mind for you, because, we'll be coming back this way. We don't need the bars right now. We got Mexican Safeway. But so anyway, we're on our way to enter Mexican Safeway, and you don't really notice them, but in between the two doors that, those type of stores have, one on each side. In between, sitting down on the curb there's a group of about 8 or 10 young Mexican boys. They don't pay any particular attention to us, and we don't pay any particular attention to them. There's nothing, there's nothing going on. So, must be Mexicans. Okay. So we go into the Mexican Safeway, and there's 3 of us now. And now there are 3 of us with shopping carts. A formative foe for sure. So we start going to town on this Mexican Safeway, and what we start with is Tres Equis beer, baby. Not Dos Equis like we get here, 2 X's. No. It's 3 X's. Tres Equis. And they may have sold it in America for a little while, but they don't anymore, because the U.S. laws for you to call it beer means you have to water it down to a certain place, like your Budweisers or what. Nothing wrong with those, but there are stronger versions available if one were to want to make one, you see. And Tres Equis did want to make one, and they do make one. And so it's just like Dos Equis in taste, but it's wrong. So here we are. The first thing we are loading up my shopping cart with is case. We got Annaby, and we got Ted, and we got me catching up. And here come all these cases of Tres Equis, baby. And we quickly are filling up this shopping cart. It's a good thing we have 3, because we're just getting started. Now, still in the beer department, we go to Tecati's. Now, Tecati's in the U.S., sure, it's a nice beer and everything, but once again, the U.S. version is the watered-down version. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not the Mexican product. Now, the way that Mexico dealt with this one, instead of Dos Equis, Tres Equis, in Tecati, what they did is they just make a completely different beer for Mexico, that's called Tecati, than they have for the United States, that's called Tecati. Both fine products. I've enjoyed many, I wouldn't turn one down, you know what I'm saying? So once again, you got the Tecati beers, and it's stronger. So here we go again. We're filling them up. Here comes all these freaking cases of beer. Put them in. Wait a minute. Underneath. Look, and we're packing as much as we can possibly carry. Okay, we're not fooling around. So now we go to the real stuff. Now we take a short pit stop at the vodka, and get the great big bottles, and they just keep coming. We're on the second shopping cart now. At least 10 or 12 bottles of vodka, at least. Because vodka is like tea to other people. It just goes down. We need lots of it. But right at this point, after we finish loading up with vodka, So now we got a great big cart full of beer. We got a great big cart full of vodka. And Ted makes an edict. Yeah. He says, okay, here's what we're going to do. So Andy and I stand there, waiting impatiently with our full carts here. We look at each other, we look at him, yeah. And he says, we, to celebrate being in Mexico, are going to buy massive amounts of tequila. And we are going to drink it in a celebratory manner. So, get ready. So I look at Annabelle again, she looks at me, okay. So, here we go, we go to the tequila department, here we go, and boom, 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 we have it down right now. We'll pass it, oh, good stuff. And just, boom, another cart full of tequila. So we've got enough to last until we get to our destination anyway, you know what I'm saying? And actually we figured we could buy beer at the location, but we wanted enough vodka and tequila to just last us because who knows what they might do with the price on those items. You don't want to risk that. So now we got all 3 shopping carts loaded with all our alcoholic booty. And I head the wagon train, yee-haw! And we go up to the checkout line, and it's just like the checkout line in America. There's usually somebody in front of you, and you get in line. And you wouldn't know you weren't here if you didn't know you weren't here. So, hold on. Thanks. Thinking of all that alcohol, So I'm in line, and Ted and Annabelle say, oh, wait a minute, we need a couple more things. So they take back off. They have flown the coop. They are back in the store getting more stuff off the shelves, whatever it was. So I alone am left with the cart full of beer, the cart full of vodka, and the cart full of tequila. And I'm just, waiting in line. I have the money for everything. If they don't get back, it doesn't really matter. Whatever. And so while I'm waiting there, there's another line just a few feet away, just like here. And as I'm standing there waiting in line, I'm like the next person. This, he's shorter than I am. That's not unusual. This young gentleman, Mexican, walks up to me and he looks at me. And he looks at my carts of alcohol. And he looks back at me and he says, if you, I didn't understand what he said. He was speaking Spanish. But fortunately, like I said, there was another line just right behind this gentleman. And it turned out we had an interpreter because she spoke English and Spanish. And realizing that I didn't know what he said to me, she just leans in over his, and she says, the gentleman says, if you drink all that, you're going to be sleeping with the angels. And I said, oh, thanks. And I smiled at the gentleman, thanks, man. He didn't know. Sure, it probably would kill normal people, but we aren't normal. So, now we check out, they come back with whatever they were looking for. We check out, and we got these massive carts. Oh my God, if I'd known it was this much work, would have got another cart. I don't know. But anyway, so now we go outside the Safeway. This is where it gets important. Do you recall the barely noticed young Mexican gentleman sitting on the curb in between the 2 front doors of the Safeway? Well, now, when we're coming out with all the booty, now these young Mexican gentlemen are interested in us. And the way that this turns out is, we learned a lesson early on here. You don't choose as the tourist. It's a dirty word. As the tourist, you don't choose which one helps you. Well, you might be able to, but that's not their setup. Their setup is whoever beats his way to the front of the gang, he and maybe the guy that's helping him are helping you. They chose you. They won their right to be the ones that help you. The other guys can wait for the next one. And so, well, okay, they're going to help us. Well, it soon became clear the reason that they didn't help us when we were going into the Safeway, where, there's a lot of work to be done. So you're pulling this, oh God, all those bottles. They waited until we were coming out to the car because really everything was done except for putting the booty in the car and driving away. So they weren't there to help us. They were there to act like they were going to help us and then just get in the way. And there we are, and they just get in the way, and they'd stop you. You got to move them out of the way. So we realized at this point that they weren't there to help us. They didn't want us to pay them to help us. They wanted us to pay them to go away. And once we realized that, we totally agreed with that theory. We gave them some money, and they got the heck out of there. And we packed all this booty up, and off we go. Let's take a little musical break here. How you doing? So, I mentioned the desert. We're about to get there. Thanks. So I mentioned when I looked across the street by the military half-track that I saw there were bars over there. Oh. And like I say, we noted that for on the way out. But I'm going to tell you about it now because it's the same theory of what just happened with the young Mexican boys who were helping us put the alcohol away. They weren't helping us. They were making us pay them to go away. So when we come back 2 weeks later, we spent most of the money. I mean, that's what the money was for, to spend in Mexico. But when I was in 7th grade, I had a surfing friend, my best friend, who also went to Mexico. This is, when surfing first came out, and I just respected them because my parents wouldn't let me go surfing. They wouldn't let us do anything. But he showed me something that I wanted for the rest of my life, and finally got a pair when I got to Mexico. And that is, he had huaraches. Huaraches are Mexican sandals, and the bottom is a tire tread. I thought that was just so cool. Oh man, I want me some huaraches, And I wanted them for years and years and years. And well, this trip to Mexico is finally going to provide them. I should have bought 3 or 4, but the money was running out, and who knows. But anyway, before that happens, we're on the way back out, and we stop at those bars because we saw them. We have to stop. We saw them. You have to stop at a bar when you see them. We do. So what we do is, you walk in, and it's a fairly long bar, and there's a fair amount of customers there. Some are Mexican, some are Spanish, whatever it is, and some are tourists. But remember, this is off season. There's nobody else there really except for us. I mean, tourist-wise. So we go in there and sit down and order us a beer, and up comes, what comes up, don't you? A Mexican trio that's just disgustingly awful. And what do they choose to play to please us gringos? Think about it. What song would you just rather kill somebody than hear again? That's right. La Cucaracha. The lame-o Mexican song that was made, was in the movies all the time, and back then, oh my God, what an awful song. So that's the song that they're trying to have a quiet beer before we start driving back home, you see. Well, that all ended with La Cucaracha, La Cucaracha. There's 3 of us and there's 3 of them. So what they did, these clever little musicians, is they figured out the most annoying song that they could think of. They weren't playing their greatest hits, they were playing their most annoying hits. And once again, we learned our lessons from the boys over at the Mexican Safeway, where we paid them to go away. Didn't take us long. We paid them all, gave them some coin, and get the hell out of here. The cucaracha. My God. It was horrible, but it was fast. We knew how to deal with it then. So I just thought I'd throw that other little encounter in, as long as we're talking about the boys in the Safeway parking lot. Might as well tell you the cucaracha story too. So now, it's time to get going. Hey, it's still early, the sun is up, it's noontime or so. Earlier. We're off to a good start. And so we head south, we leave town, and you know what? There's that bar that we're in, and from the Safeway parking lot and everything, it looks like, well, here's a normal town. Everything looks normal, right? But no, we start driving south, and as soon as we drive past the back of the bar that we were just in, only desert. That fast. You couldn't even see the town anymore. It just disappeared. And we were kind of shocked by that, but okay. I don't know what we thought. Suburbs, there weren't any suburbs. It just doesn't work that way. There might be suburbs somewhere else, but there weren't any suburbs here. It's get those darn tourists and get their money. There's no time for suburbs. So anyway, here we go. We're going down, and we're all of a sudden in the desert. And Ted once again says, all right, put whatever you're drinking away and give me a bottle of tequila. Okay, so, Annabee brings one up. Annabee gets the drinks now because, see, Ted and I are both in those swiveling captain chairs up front, and the motor's not in the middle of his van anymore. It's up front where you can see death coming. Sideways. So that's great because for a camper, you can go in the back, So what we did is we put a chair there, boom, with Annabee right in between us. And every time that we ran dry on whatever it was, we just had to, and she would, boom, she was right near, boom. It was a very effective situation of transfer of liquids. Well, so after we're a mile or two out in the desert, Ted said, he stops the car. Got your attention? He says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop drinking whatever else you're drinking, just finish it up, put it away, and we're going to drink tequila. Okay. But no, we're not. We have to drink it a certain way. Well, then what is that, pray tell? And he says, what we're going to do. And he takes this bottle of tequila. And he says, we're going to guzzle it and pass it. And we're just going to keep on guzzling and keep on passing. There's no have a drink in there. I'll see you in a half an hour. So no. First Ted starts, leads off by example. And the great thing is that tequila is surprisingly swallowable. Not like whiskey where it's, oh my God, you got to be careful with it. No, tequila is, bearing on brand, I suppose, but if you get a good tequila, it goes down really pretty easily. So you got the super strong stuff going down easily. And so Ted's finished with it, and he passes it to me. So I know my duty. I just got shown a sample. So, you ready, Annabee? And pass it to her. And she does the same thing because she is no slouch. That's why she's on vacation with us in the first place. She's short, well endowed, and she can drink almost as much as Ted and I. She's the only one that could ever do that. And she's as short, young lady, at the end of the night, she would maybe go to bed a half an hour before we did. Nobody else could do that. So, kudos to Annabelle, and that's why she was along for the ride. And here goes this darn tequila, and Annabelle takes a big old hit. I should be playing Chug-a-Lug, huh? And she passes it to Ted again. Now, Ted, remember, we're driving down this desert road, but and there's a couple potholes here and there on it, but it's basically a good passable road, and it's straight as heck. It goes right straight down Bahia, all the way to Cabo San Lucas, where they filmed a John Huston movie. And so, there's no danger. We never did see only one other car, and that wasn't until almost midnight, and it was coming the other way, and it was like a Lincoln, one of those great big rich people's cars. So it didn't care about any potholes. It was going about 80. So, must be nice to have the suspension, But so that's the only car we ever did see. So there was no trouble with taking a break and urinating or whatever. I mean, there's no trees anyway. There's a cactus you could hide behind if you wanted to, but it's really not necessary. There is no one else there. And we carried on with this tale of tequila for quite a long time. The bottle was at least half empty by the time that session stopped. Because, I wanted to get back to some beer and some, vodka. I mean, tradition is all great and fine and everything, but enough it we'll dedicate we'll schedule further time for tequila dedications, okay? So that was the end of that. And we went back to our normal drinking, which, could have included tequila. It just wasn't restricted to tequila. So a good time was had by all. And by the way, that was very effective, that guzzling and passing. We were all feeling much better than we were before we did that. And we're out in the desert, and we're just having a grand old time. And it goes till about midnight. You can no longer see anything. It's pitch black. And these two useless headlights on Ted's camper van, they just right before you need to know, they show you the pothole you're going to hit. You can't do anything about it. It doesn't show it to you that soon. It just says, oh, look what I got. And there comes a point at about 12 midnight. Like I said, the only thing that you can see once in a while is when a cacti is close to the road, you see this. Because it's close enough to be in the headlights. The ones that are a little further away, not so much. So, I mentioned that because it's amazing that there came a point where Ted says, hold it. I think we've gone too far. He says, yep, no, this doesn't look right. We've gone too far. I looked at Annabelle, she looked at me and I said, what the hell are you talking about? We haven't seen anything except total black and the occasional cactus that's close to the road for the last 3 hours. What the hell are you talking about? We've gone too far. Nope, he was not to be questioned. So, he's driving. So he turns the van around, and you know what? Right there, half a van's worth behind us, we had just passed it, was the turnoff that we wanted to Bahia de Los Angeles. Now that is, what's amazing about that is if there were any kind of little wind or disturbance or anything, you wouldn't have even been able to tell that that was a road. I mean, that's how non-distinct it was. It wasn't, hey, turn left, you're only 3 miles from, no, there was nothing like that. It was just this little kind of dirt desert driveway type of thing. Sure enough, that was the road. And so, we were thinking when we were coming down the main highway there, and, we were making pretty good time, but there was occasional potholes. And we got to the point, Annabelle and I at least, because, Ted may have already known this, of course, from the year before, But we said, you know what? Somebody ought to be doing something about maintaining this road. I mean, what is this? And so then we turned off to the road to Bahia de Los Angeles, the little driveway. And now we were in for a whole separate driving reality. Now we were about to know what real potholes were. Because the highway that we had just gotten off of, that went south, and we were, complaining about the occasional pothole. Well, that's maintained by the Mexican government because they want all this money coming in from all of us, gringos. So they kept, it might not have seemed like it a few minutes ago, but they actually did a great job. Thank you, Mexico. Good job on that highway. And the reason we realized that is because when we turned left to go down the Bahia de Los Angeles road, all of a sudden everything is we're trying to put seatbelts on. Oh, Andy, you okay? Oh, she hit her. And this went on for hours. It never stopped. So that's the end of the tequila story and the desert story. Next time we're going to be talking about going over the mountain. Nice to see you. Let's boogie a while. After that. To the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name. Oh yeah, baby. Because there ain't no one to give you no. Yep. It's been great to see you. Got a lot more Mexican stories of Mexican vacations to come. Some of you run out screaming when I announce that, but hey, you don't have to watch it, but I have to make it. Because it's important. So, nice to see you. Be good to each other. So now we're going to say a fond farewell to America and a horse with no freaking name, baby. We'll see you later now, okay?